How you doing? My name's Dave. This is Kerbal Space Program, episode 4 of my career playthrough. In the last episode, I was going to do a orbit around the moon. Didn't quite have enough delta V, so ended up doing a free return trajectory. So we swooped by the moon, got a whole bunch of science, and now we're back. And at the end of the last episode, I said we would land a Kerbal on the moon, which might be a little optimistic, but I might be able to do that. So we unlocked this tier and this tier, and also these two on the last mission. Just these two. I was thinking it was those three. Also, I noticed during the last mission that our first rocket that kind of didn't make it into space was still just sitting, hanging out. Had thought I recovered it. I recovered the Kerbal, apparently, but not the spacecraft. So I'll recover that vessel. And that gave me 5 science. Recovery of a vessel that survived a flight. So, I guess that's something. So, let's head into the VAB. And I'll build a lander and rocket to get us to the moon. I'll probably accelerate this a little bit, put some music to it, and I'll see you when I get back. Okay, so this is my lander and my moon rocket. As I said, I always tend to over-engineer. That's a lot of little parts, so we'll see what happens. But first, we'll put Jeb in there. We'll try and make Jeb the first Kerbal to land on the moon. So I think all my staging is set. I have all my boosters and my rocket motor set to fire at launch. These little boosters will stage first, followed by, oh, see, I didn't. These ones would probably be next. So we'll move them down there, remove that stage, there we go. And then these fuel tanks, I have them what's referred to as asparagus staging. So I will shed these liquid fuel boosters as I deplete the fuel. The fuel is all routed to be used from this tank first throughout the whole lower portion of the rocket. So let's go to launch and see what happens. Okay, so throttle up, SAS on, and launch. Staying pretty straight, which is good. These boosters need to stop firing before I shed these ones. I think we're drop everything on the Space Center and hope it doesn't hit anybody that's watching our launch from down there. So we're almost in position to do our gravity turn. So we'll go nice and gentle. And as we're accelerating kind of slow, I'm not going to go all the way to the 90. I'll stop a little shy. So our ascent looks good so far. Come into the map screen and bring that up so I can control the rocket from here. We're slowly climbing. There's those two boosters. You can see our prograde marker is going out. We're accelerating horizontally, but we're not quite ascending as fast as we need to. This is a fairly heavy lander. I always tend to over-engineer, but we have plenty of fuel. I should be able to, once we get to about 30,000 feet, really start to go. We'll have to see what happens here. I have one more stage here. That was to get to the moon. So we're still climbing. And we're pretty much on target. So let's see where we're at. Yeah, we're climbing good now. So we're gonna lose these two boosters in a little bit, so hopefully we'll get our altitude a little bit higher before we lose them. We can rotate a little bit more. Try and help that out. Stage those two. And then we're in for quite a long burn. This stage. This is the final stage of our ascent stage. And so far, so good. All we need to do is get above 70,000 meters. Make sure we're still climbing. Jeb is really happy dancing in the cockpit there. He's a lot more confident than I am. So we'll get a little cushion of safety. And then that's probably the least fuel efficient, but as soon as you stop thrusting, you can lose your momentum. You can lose your acceleration and start to slow down. So what we'll do is kind of cheat that. Don't want this altitude too high, so we'll kind of point right at it, but with enough up that our apoapsis kind of stays in front of us as we try and get our speed up. I still have to increase it by another 1,000 meters per second, but as soon as we lose this stage, we'll lose all that extra weight too and use this stage to fire. So getting into orbit is going to be kind of iffy. See if we can keep that ahead of us for a little bit, just so we maintain our altitude. We do have solar panels, so we don't have to worry too much about losing our electricity. We're accelerating at a pretty good clip. So far, so good. About ready to lose this stage. And we're on to the next one, and you can see our acceleration boost there. This is kind of hovering with us. because that's the direction we're moving, and I'm thrusting upwards. So now we caught up. We'll let it get ahead of us a little bit, and then point right at it. There we go. Point right at our prograde marker. And there we go. We're almost in orbit. Just a little bit more. And we're up. So now we have an orbit. We have lights. So they don't really work. I put them on for landing lights for our moon descent. So we'll turn those off to conserve power. And we'll set our target as the moon. So we're actually in a pretty good spot. To reach the moon. So I'm going to adjust this maneuver to get us right close. And that gives us 11 meters. 67,000, 65. Oops, too far. 13,000, almost 14,000. So I'll be good with that. So that's a almost 1.5 minute burn. And we'll reach that node in less than 5 minutes. So we'll point our forward indicator to our maneuver node and time accelerate. We might have to use some of the lander fuel to complete our burn, unfortunately. So I needed just a little bit more thrust at the beginning. This rocket's just a little too heavy. So we'll time accelerate. And we'll start our burn. Right now is probably close enough. So we'll get right on that marker. And we'll burn for the moon. This landing's gonna be iffy though. Because I'm using my lander fuel down to get to the moon. And I'll have to use it to slow down and get an orbit around the moon. So let's see where we're at. I'm going to slow my throttle down a little bit. Okay, and that gets us right there. We'll fine tune. 12,000. So there we go. We're on our way to the moon, and we'll zoom pretty close at 12,700 meters. We still have plenty of fuel, so we'll time accelerate and watch the moon come swooping up. Okay, I wonder if we can do a crew report from here. Nope. We're gonna try and find a good landing spot, that's for sure. But first, let's get into orbit. So I'm going to time accelerate until we're at our periapsis. Okay. And now we're really close to the moon. So I'm going to rotate around and face retrograde. And start to bring in our orbit. You can see this line curving around as we're slowing down. And we're in orbit around the moon. We have reached lunar orbit. Jeb is pretty happy. We'll send in a crew report. Nope, still while in space, high over the moon. So we want to land on the light side. Let's try and land. Well, we're a little bit oddball. You can see Kerbal in the background there. So let's see, where are we coming down? Let's try and land kind of by this canyon here on the edge of that crater. So I'll put a maneuver node. Oops. And we'll do a little bit extra, because as we slow down, that'll start coming in. About right there for our maneuver. So I'm going to change the camera view. I'm going to rotate the spacecraft to make sure I'm oriented in a way that I can control it. It's real easy to get confused and crash. And we don't want to leave Jeb on the moon. So we're not quite outfitted to rescue him. Fortunately, he's well supplied and quite happy. So I'll time accelerate to our node. And this is just a 2-second burn. And there we go. We're starting our landing profile, but we're looking at landing right about there, I think. So we'll get rid of that maneuver node. And I'll place one right there, just to have it there, and that gives me a time, 11 minutes until we reach that spot. So no crew report, and I'm saving my experiments for the surface of the moon, because if we can recover them and take them back to Kerbal, they're worth a lot more. than just transmitting them. So we'll accelerate till we hit the next node. You can see us rotate around in our orbit. So we'll straighten back up. And I don't see that crater yet, but we can start thrusting a little prograde or retrograde. Start slowing this down a bit. We'll speed up a little bit more until we see we're getting close. That looks like we're getting quite close. There it is. I think that's the canyon I was looking at. And we'll see if we can land on the lip of the canyon. So now we're starting our descent. Thrust. We should deploy our landing gear. And we'll wait a bit to turn on our lights. We're on the light side. So we're looking pretty good. I'm keeping this on our prograde. So we're still okay on fuel. We've stopped our horizontal movement for the most part. And now we're coming down for our landing. So we'll go in the cockpit. And I explained a couple of episodes ago that this is the radar altimeter. So when you're looking at this, this is basically from sea level where you're at. But the radar altimeter, now where is the sun? That's right overhead. So our shadow should be right behind us. So if we look at that, down here is 500 meters. On the radar. And now we're starting. So we'll throttle up a little bit. We're hoping to see a shadow. I'm coming down on a slope. Hopefully it's not too sloped. We can start to see some terrain scatter on the surface. Okay, I'm trying to keep this pointed in retrograde to control our horizontal motion. Make sure that this says surface. You can change it. See, orbit will make it look like it's off, and you'll think you're centered over the top, but you'll still be accelerating. Excuse me. So we're still descending. I don't see a shadow. There's our shadow. Lots of fuel left. Over engineering, always say above the surface of the moon. We're coming in a little fast, so we'll throttle up. You want to keep it probably below 5 meters a second, if you can. Moving a little horizontal, so we're going to readjust and make sure we're coming straight down. Going for a nice pinpoint landing. Just about on the surface, and touchdown. Cut the motor, and we have successfully landed on the moon. Pretty close to where we wanted to, which is good because I'm not real good at that. I can get pretty close, but that's about it. We can turn on our lights. And we have sufficient power, so we'll take a crew report, and we're in the Highlands, and that gives us 20 science. So we'll transmit that. The antenna extends to transmit the data, and we're there. We've successfully landed on the moon. So in the next episode, we'll come out, get our surface samples, do our science experiments, and plant our flag. And then we'll return to Kerbin. Maybe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later.